Hey guys, Scott here with David Peck. This is part 2 of our conversation with Paul Golf. You have to watch part 1 to understand. My name is actually Jason Clark, and we're here at Baxter's beautiful space. And I want to just pick up the conversation where we left off. We've been talking about the intersection between the charismatic, experiential encounter with the goodness of God, with the love of God, and connecting it to this Trinitarian theological perichoretic dance that that Baxter and I have been exploring for I don't know how many, 50 some episodes, and of course many years before that. But I want to hand it back to you, Paul, because that was we were kind of in midstream when we had to say goodbye.
Well, and if you haven't seen part 1, you know what?
Yeah.
Just put this one on pause, open up another tab on your computer and watch part 1 first.
Yes.
I highly recommend it for a lot of reasons.
100%. Yeah.
Nice one, guys. Yeah, well, we were just talking, I was sharing a story of an experience I had leading a meeting and what it's been like in my experience to connect with very real experiential sense of flowing and moving with the Holy Spirit. And I think I often reflect, my background, I started out as growing up as a teenage Christian convert in a very charismatic Pentecostal environment, very much about experience, encounter. We believed a lot in healing. Coming from that sort of a place, I look back, I think it was really, I see the providence of the Father in me starting out there, because I think if I'd started out in a very, mainline church that wasn't sort of on the crazy end, I don't think I would have believed any of it. Even to this day, I would say my reasons for being a Christian are not because I think Christianity has the best arguments, because I don't think it does have the best arguments. Right. It's because I can't deny the encounter I've had with the risen Christ, and a continuing and ongoing encounter with him. And I think that there are people like me out there. There are people who maybe that sort of very experiential side of things is not so important, which is also fine. I'm not saying everybody has to be like that, but I definitely think that there are people like me for whom, it's, I want to know, is it real? And if it's real, is it going to help my life?
Paul, I hate to do this to you, but I got a footnote and a series of questions. So I'm listening to you talk about your early experience and the healing and the charismatic, and I'm going to say the emotive, my word, not yours, and so on and so forth. And if you and I had been chatting at a party, I would have probably been leaving that conversation, going for a gin and tonic, and I don't even drink gin. So, do you know what I mean, Paul? Like, not because it would have necessarily triggered me, but I would have said, so that wasn't my upbringing, that wasn't my experience. And I think there's something to this, that in order for this misunderstanding to be reinterpreted or repositioned, I mean, it's going to take so much work and so much effort, because there's so much presupposition and so many assumptions we make about other people, and for you, it was your lived experience. I can't deny that. It's not a good argument, as you said, and so on and so forth, but I couldn't help but see that, or hear that at least, as being, and maybe it's because of the cultural position we find ourselves in today, but I couldn't help hearing a little bit of divisiveness, if that makes sense. Like, instead of saying, wow, that's amazing, Paul, tell me more, right? But I'm right, and I'm thinking of that person who's maybe hearing this for the first time. Well, and maybe that's not fair for this conversation, but I don't know. I just want us to be more honest, more open about the language we use and how we tell our stories.
Right.
Is that fair, Jason and Mike? Are you?
Yeah, I think, but what I love about these types of conversations, we're having it right now, and is that we're at the same table. That all three of us are sitting at the same table, and you were getting to it, the practical outworking, because it is his lived experience, and it is my lived experience. We have a small group that gathers at our house 3-4 times a week or a month, and we're having this conversation right now. This is the actual conversation. Some in the group were raised without that charismatic experiential and want it, but also somewhat skeptical, and others are saying it was amazing, but also the many things about it that were, and you noted this, it was still built on separation. It was still built on a father who looked away. And so it was also very confusing because it was still a transactional. We were still playing the same religious games.
Yes. And
so the thing that I loved about the conversation we were having and the one we're having now is I'm like, look, we're still all at the same table.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm still in those meetings, because I realized that I was chasing something and really trying to get to God, always trying to get to Him. It was just a different form of a religious bondage, and I had to step away. For me, as a charismatic, and I've said this often, and you can attest to this, Paul. Spiritual maturity was the most desperate person in the room was the most spiritual mature.
Wow, yeah, that's really funny.
Try living in that.
Super
Try living in that space.
Yeah.
So I had to get set free from that, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's religious BS.
Yeah.
And so that said, the
like
thing.
How many masks do you have to take off?
How
at that
much
point,
can
right?
I cut myself?
So
how much time? How many times can I cut myself to make him come down?
Sure.
To get him in here so we can have some sort of manifest. Even though the thing that I contend for, the thing that burns with me is that, but we talk about this when we talk about art, that there is an authentic reality that 2 + 2 = 5, which is, by the way, a great Radiohead song that I needed to just note, because you at least, and we can, but that there is this experiential knowing that all of us, I say it to my kids, I'm like, look, at the language of God is love. It's not complicated. We have made it complicated. If you want to know if God's talking to you when you experience or feel love for another, that is God speaking, and that is the authentic thing that we can then gather around. And then how do we find the baby in the bathwater? Maybe that's the best way.
Paul, you're the actual theologian in this conversation. So
speak into this, Paul.
So isn't it really separation union?
Yeah.
So pre-Socratics, Democritus, you only have atoms in the void, or you have love and relationship, and so what's your starting point? And then everything else changes, does it not?
That's it.
Agreed. No, I completely. So my with an analogy. So we talk about in the sort of charismatic Pentecostal world, people talk about being filled with the Spirit, right? I mean, that's from the Bible, be filled with the Spirit.
Right.
But the idea that is the way it's often thought about is like you are a bucket with holes in the bottom and on the sides, and you need to get filled because you're empty, and then you're going to leak out, and that's sin, or that's not praying enough or something, and that will constantly drain away the amount of the Spirit that you have. And spiritual maturity is to get that bucket kind of repaired.
That's Plato.
So that
That's Plato, by the way, Paul, right out of the Gorgias.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But here's another way to think about it. The concept of being filled with the Spirit, my preferred analogy is of a sailboat, right? The boat sits on the ocean and it sits in the air, and it's completely filled and saturated with the air. It can't have more air than it has. But the sail can be up or the sail can be down. And if the sail's down and the wind blows, the boat's going to rock a bit. You know, maybe the ocean's going to kind of move the boat around. But you might sit there and think, well, I've got oars in this boat. I need to row my boat really hard to get somewhere. And you can row the boat really hard to get somewhere, and you'll get somewhere. But you'll get tired out pretty quickly as well. The other way to look at it is, but if I put my sail up into the wind, the sail enters into a state of passive rest. The sail isn't active. It doesn't have a motor. It doesn't have any energy that it's generating from within itself. And the sail is no more or less full of air or surrounded by air. It's baptized in the air, no more or less, when it's up or down or when the wind's blowing or not. But if the sail is not up and unfold when the wind blows, then there's a certain kind of movement is not going to happen for the boat. The wind is still blowing, it's still full, but the experience of the person in the boat is very different. And so I think that it's a better analogy, which is saying, okay, come into the place of active rest, where we're not trying to engineer outcomes based on our best understanding about what things should look like. Let's stop trying to work really, really hard to be spiritual, which is like rowing the oars really hard. But let's allow the sail to open up into the air. And then the blowing of the wind, we have no control over. That's the moving of the Spirit. And as the Spirit moves, things are going to happen. And we're going to get taken places, and we might find we're going really fast and, struggling to hang on. And then other times it might be kind of gentle, right? So I think that from a union perspective, not Jungian, a union perspective.
How do you spell that, Paul?
Sorry?
How do you spell that?
Yeah, sure. So the other thing I'm thinking is, Brits are typically quite reserved, like Canadians.
Yes.
In fact, I'm also Canadian, right? I'm Canadian British, and I'm Greek by descent. So, I get the sense of, what does social proprietary and, all those kind of things look like? But the thing is, all Brits are actually charismatics. And I can prove this because if you go down to the football stadium, that's the soccer stadium, on any given weekend, you will see Brits going absolutely ballistic. They'll rip their shirts off, they'll scream, they'll throw things around. And we used to have a big problem with people getting into fights as well, right? So, football hooligan thing. So you get the same people who will go to a football match on a Saturday and be completely ecstatic and, in the moment and cheering and all over the place. And then they'll get in on a Sunday morning into church, and it'll be the yo-yo, stand up, sit down, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, completely conformed to this strange social environment on a Sunday morning because they somehow feel conditioned by that. And then they might get nervous if somebody's, say, laughing in the church, or if somebody's being a little bit, manifesting, whatever. That's weird. That's strange. You think, but 24 hours ago, you were in a room where there were in a stadium where there were 10,000 people behaving completely off the wall,
right?
And that wasn't strange to you, but it's the context is strange because it's sort of culturally determined.
Hey guys, this is Baxter Kruger here. I'm with my friend Jason Clark. We have an ongoing conversation about all things Trinitarian, about the real meaning of the death of Jesus, practical side of living the Christian life in union with Jesus and in the union with us. And this is ongoing. It's been quite beautiful. We've got well over 60 or 70 episodes recorded so far, but welcome, come join us. Let's get to the conversation.
Paul, they didn't need oars at the football game.
That's a good point.
They didn't need oars at the football game,
right?
Well, how about Oxford rowing?
Yeah, I mean they're sailing at the football game, right? They're in the middle of it, and they're fully aware of it. And I remember going to a game. My dad took my brother. My dad's from Luton, so I remember going to a game and just marveling as a kid, probably at 8 or 9 years old, at the quantity of toilet paper that was involved, because the toilet paper rolls that were being thrown over the goal post, and the people streaking on the fields. And that was back in the day when people actually used to run across a football field with no clothes on, these kinds of things, and just thinking, wow, these guys are all nuts. and then you're right, and then typically known as being reserved. I think it's a really helpful analogy of way of sort of saying, what I hear, Paul, is we're all in the middle of it all the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I hear. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, we can't not be in the middle of it because it's just the presence and glory of God.
Yeah.
That's back to me. For me, that's back to union separation. That is the first thing.
That's the conversation we're having. I love the idea they didn't need oars, because that is religion. Is literally you walk in and they hand you an oar. Like that's the nature of it.
At best, you had a canoe paddle. And you know how hard it is to steer a rowboat with a canoe paddle, right?
Right.
It's impossible.
Right.
It's impossible. You're trying, but it's really not going wherever you want it to go.
But union, if that's the starting point, which again is back to the conversation that we've been having collectively as a community in our house, is that when union becomes the beginning, the end, everything before, everything after, everything in between, then you get to reinvestigate, and this is the fun thing for me, to see a Baxter and a Crowder in the room. You get to reinvestigate every expression of Christianity that's existed for the last 2,000 years, and we don't have to throw things out. We don't have to throw out even, culturally, the Sunday morning service, or the fact that there is liturgy, and the stand up and sit down can be a holy experience. The problem has never been, not solely that it's never been the structures or the systems. It's been that we keep handing people oars. We keep handing them separation.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to knock the idols down or deconstruct them even, but you at least have to test them from time to time.
Right.
Right?
Well, reground them on, can we discover what it means to rethink the upper room experience in the context of there is no separation, instead of trying to somehow put more smoke and lights and all the things that we do to try and, as a charismatic, make that upper room happen for 2 hours on a Sunday morning, or in the revival culture that we're in. And there's all kinds of religious expressions, but that would be the charismatic. Hey, how do we rebuild this upper room experience? But we're doing it through the lens of separation, and so you keep handing everybody. Does that make sense, Paul? I'm sure you could speak to that.
I think 2 points come to mind talking about the upper room. I mean, one is thinking about the Apostle Peter, who speaks obviously at the day of Pentecost, but I think it's the first letter of Peter. He says, though you haven't seen Christ, you love him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy. Because you're receiving the goal of your faith, the salvation of your soul, right? So he talks about inexpressible and glorious joy. Well, it's inexpressible, right? That means something you feel so strongly you can't get it out. It's literally inexpressible. It's not inexpressible because it's so deep down you can't access it, right? It's inexpressible because it's very real to you.
Yeah.
And glorious. The other thing is thinking about the day of Pentecost. I remember reading a point. I can't remember who made it, so I just have to claim it for myself. But it's explicit in the Book of Acts. It says talks about the sound of the mighty rushing wind and tongues of fire appearing in the house where they were sitting. So it makes a point of saying they were sitting when they were in the house. And coming to sort of questions about liturgy, one of the things we know about early Jewish liturgies is Jews would never sit to pray. So we kind of have the idea that they were having a 10-day prayer meeting, but actually the implication is that they weren't even praying.
Right, they were having lunch.
They were just sitting, hanging out, right? They were chatting, they were maybe telling stories, whatever they were doing. That's when
they were watching a movie. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe you get the DVD out. Maybe watching the Blues Brothers. I always think James Brown's, gospel service was like, that's the right kind of church,
Wow.
Do you remember that one? They're on the trampolines, kind of bouncing up in the air.
Yeah.
The thing I love about that is it's not an exaggeration. I've been in meetings where that's not an exaggeration. It's actually like that.
I have too. But what you just said about them sitting down, and that is, for me, that's a big deal. They were sitting down because that has been presented to me, that upper room experience has been presented to me like that they were in, and my understanding of a prayer meeting is not, it doesn't sound like fun. Like begging God to come somehow, instead of, they were probably breaking bread and, just celebrating each other and living life, authentic life, and then from there having had a profound encounter, inexpressible, meaning you can't find the words.
Completely. You could be completely dumbstruck.
Yeah.
Or, I've a couple of times I've had it. I was never I mean, I sound like the most charismatic guy out there, but I've been in a room where 300 people are on the floor and I'm the only one who's not.
Right.
Because I would never fall over. Right? People would get prayed for and they'd fall over and all the rest. And I think a lot of that is just learned behavior, or, you can get hypnotic suggestions of things happening in the room.
I've seen some pretty good hypnotists pull that off as well. Right?
Absolutely. I've seen that too. Yeah, completely.
And I would have been the other guy in the room at the back waving at you, standing up as well.
But I've also experienced where you just like getting hit by something. This happened to me. The time this really happened to me, and it was quite life-changing, was in 2011. I was in London, right outside a church called the Emmanuel Centre, which is right in the heart of Westminster. So right opposite the church is the Home Office, the UK Home Office. And I was in a conference there, 1,000 people. I walked out and I was trying to find a sandwich, and people had heard at the time I was known to a bunch of people then. A whole bunch of people were trying to find me, and I was trying to avoid them because I was feeling tired and I just wanted a sandwich. And I was just trying to avoid people. Right, I was looking for Pret. You guys have Pret in the US?
What is it?
Maybe not. Pret a Manger. It's a sandwich shop. It's really good. Anyway, when you come, I'll take you. Uh-huh. So I'm looking around looking for Pret. I got lost, and then these two people come walking the other way, and they've just been going around praying for people, right? And they walk up to me, and one of them, they became really close friends, actually. One of them, she just said to me, are you a musician? Because as I was walking up to you, I saw musical notes coming out of your mouth. And it's true, I am, and at the time I was doing a lot more in music than I'm doing now, but at the time that was true. When she said that, I felt like I just got hit by something, and I was just in uncontrollable ecstatic laughter. The whole kind of holy laughter thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not in a church. I'm outside looking for a sandwich. I'm very distracted, and I'm just completely, and I can't stand up. I'm holding onto the wall of the Home Office, and the lunch break, and the kind of civil servants are coming out and they're walking past me, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm seeing over the road, other people are just hitting the ground as well.
That's wild.
But the same thing is going on. And I was taking everything I could to not end up on the floor. And what, I've been in the meetings where everyone's having that experience, and I'm just totally nah, I'm not getting this. And then I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't doing anything. I was just looking for a sandwich.
Right. Yeah.
And I just got slapped out of nowhere. I think it's it is funny, right? It seems to me it's a bit of a divine joke, because sometimes you get a bit slapped by the Holy Spirit.
I think that, Paul, seriously, the takeaway for me is, and for me it comes back to perichoresis and union, but I was just outside looking for a sandwich.
Right.
That's the T-shirt. That's the campaign.
Yeah.
We're all just outside looking for a sandwich at any given time.
Well, and
right?
that's the authentic. This is the fruit of union. This is just, to me, that is an authentic way by which to describe the thing that I'm hungry for, is that I could live fully me in this moment. Aware of whatever it is that love is doing in the moment as well, and not have to chase it down or force it or make something happen.
One of my favorite books of all time is Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, and if you haven't read it, I just encourage you all to read it. It's brilliant for so many reasons. Retelling of a Greek tale. But there's a moment where Orul, and Baxter talks about this in The Great Dance and in other places, but where she can't see the palace that she's standing in.
Wow.
And she's surrounded by beauty and structure, small s, and system and history and culture, but she can't see it, right? And it pops to mind for me so often in these kinds of conversations, because I can't see it either. I'm just outside looking for a sandwich, but you got to recognize that.
When we're
right?
it's
so hard, or at least it is for me.
Well, and this is a conversation where we were having this last night at the hotel, just breaking down that line between sacred and secular. And really, that's a lot of what we're having a conversation about, is that everything is sacred, that I was just out looking for a sandwich, is a beautiful way to say it.
Paul, we got to wrap pretty soon.
And
I'm really thrilled you've been able to share so much of your personal story with us on these 2 episodes. But can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah,
in a minute and a half.
In about a minute and a half. In 30.
Okay, I'm writing a book. It's not an autobiography, but it is autobiographical in that I'm telling my story and I'm putting sort of theological reflections and sort of the message on it. I'm writing it because Paul Young and Ben Testament told me to write it over breakfast a couple of years ago. I thought, all right, and then Baxter told me as well. So I thought, well, okay, 3 witnesses, I got to do it. So I've been working on it. It's nearly finished. But one of the reason I wanted to write it is because I went through this real journey of being in the hardcore deep end of works-driven, charismatic craziness, and I went through that through a massive crash. All to do with the nature of God, the character of God, heaven and hell, what is the Bible, fundamentalism, all of this. And I came out the other side of that having encountered like a second conversion for me. That was something so much more beautiful and rich. And I felt like it was as if I never knew God before compared to the way I came to know him after that experience, right? And then I spent years trying to find the theological language to put around that. And that journey introduced me first to Kruger and then to Baxter and you guys and others, over the years. That's been super helpful in kind of finding models that help to interpret the experience that I've had, which could not fit in the theology that I had before. So I'm writing that into this book, partly because sometimes I go around and I'm sharing this stuff about the goodness of God, and the finished work and inclusion and union and all of this. And people sometimes raise objections, but they don't know my history.
Yeah.
And I thought, if you knew my history, there's no way you would even dare to raise that objection in public. I basically wrote the script that you're singing from right now. So I wanted to put that down so people could kind of track with me on it. I haven't finalized on the title yet. Today, I think I'm thinking of calling it something like Waking Up from Dreamland, but I'm days away from finishing. I was working on it even this morning. It's so nearly done.
Come on.
I'm looking forward to getting it out there and kind of continuing the conversation. So yeah, thanks for letting me share a bit on that.
I love it, Paul. Love having these conversations with you. It's been incredible, man. CrossAllWorlds.com is where you find us. And when the book comes out, we highly recommend going and getting it. Love you, man. Great to have you here.
See you, Paul.
Thanks, guys. Great to see you.